So Russia brought their Su-57 to China last week, or rather, they actually brought their T-50 to China to the Zhuhai Airshow. They're catching a lot of flack on social media because people are saying they brought their Su-57 and it's not looking that stealthy. Spectators got up close and personal to the T-50. They noticed panels that were mismatched, fasteners that were sticking out, parts that would make this 5th generation stealth fighter not so stealthy, thus making it kind of not applicable in a modern 5th generation type discussion when we're talking stealth. So we're going to take a look at the performance that was put on at the Zhuhai Airshow, take a look at a few other things as well. So Russia built the T-50 as the prototype to the Su-57. They built about 10 of these, 7 of which were flyable. Now, Russia seems to take these T-50s, and that's the one they showcase at air shows. They don't take the Su-57. They have about 25 of these, according to open source, as of November of this year, but they don't seem to take that one out of the country, at least. Now, in the United States, we've taken the F-22, we've taken the F-35 to global air shows. Now, it is cordoned off and protected. My guess is, one, either the Russians don't want to risk the threat of espionage and someone stealing Su-57 technology. They don't want to risk losing a Su-57, or they don't have enough of them to send and showcase these planes elsewhere. There might be some other reasons, but we'll just leave it at that for now. The difference between the United States and Russia, there's a lot of them, but the fact that they took a T-50 and then allowed people to get up close and personal to it and make the mistake or make the assumption that this is the same technology as a Su-57, and as you can see, put up a picture here, Su-57, at least from the images that are available on open source, the plane looks like all the fasteners are covered, smooth. It looks more of a stealth fighter, or things that you would expect out of a stealth modern 5th generation fighter. But nonetheless, they let people get up close and personal, and obviously the reviews flew in from that. Now, if you were trying to sell this plane, which apparently the Russians are trying to do, again, to me, it's interesting that you would not bring a Su-57 to a global air show and showcase if that was in true intent. Or just don't let anyone get up close and personal to it so that they can't see it. Maybe they didn't expect this would be the backlash that they would receive online from it. In the big scheme of things, they can probably just very easily walk this away from the people who really are writing the checks to buy these planes by saying, that's not a Su-57, that's a T-50. It's our test bed platform that's 10 years old or however old that plane might be, and this is really the product you're getting. So in the end, it's really not that big of a deal, in my opinion, and probably the Russians don't really care. Now, before we get into the video, random side note, I believe the test pilot for this, based on everything that's out there on the internet, you got to believe that, was Sergei Bogdan, who's a Sukhoi Design Bureau test pilot. I actually met him in 2017 at the Dubai Air Show when I was flying the F-16 demo. He and his comrade were there flying the Su-35 demonstration, which was an impressive demonstration to see. My personal take, it was quite interesting being in the elevator with Sergei and his counterpart, because in the end, everyone is just a fighter pilot flying for different nations, and there's obviously politics and things that go along with it. So it'll be interesting to watch his demonstration. We'll talk about the T-50 that he put on and some of my thoughts, which don't really matter in the big scheme of things, but you're here at this point, so might as well hang around and let's take a look at the T-50 that he flew at the Zhuhai Airshow last week. There we go, the takeoff roll. Pretty short takeoff roll. And again, just demonstrating the power here, right? Like any airshow demonstration, fighter performance is, hey, I need to show you how fast I can get airborne, and then by going into the vertical here, showing the raw power of the jet. I don't know what the internal fuel load here is. My guess, pure guess, it's probably not a full fuel load. It might be. The Su-35 demonstration did not have a full fuel load from what I understand. Now in the F-22, F-35 fly. When the F-22 flies, it's a full fuel load. The F-35, not always the case because F-35 can carry so much gas. F-16, when I did the demonstration, was a full internal fuel load, but how often do you see a clean F-16? You always got missiles, pods, and things like that. So take that in consideration. This is definitely trying to showcase the full upness, if you will, of the T-50. Here's one thing too. You can kind of see the exhaust cans, the engines definitely look more exposed in the T-50 versus the Su-57, with them being more prominent on the top side of the jet, thus reflecting more radar energy, and thus not a good thing if you're trying to stay invisible or smaller on radar. But supposedly the Su-57 has that fixed. Too bad a cut off there. Tough here. You know, this video doesn't show the horizon line, so you really can't get the movement across the ground and see just how tight this turn performance is. Now that roll rate, I would say is comparable to most fighters. I think the limiting factor, in my humble opinion, is going to be the pilot's ability. The T-38 has the fastest roll rate in the U.S. Air Force inventory. It's 720 degrees per second. You can do 3 rolls, if I remember correctly. Full stick deflection. That's a limitation of the jet. Incredibly disorienting, rolling that fast. So you can only roll so fast around the axis, but it does look like a pretty clean roll. The impressive part here is as he rolls, look how fast he can get that nose around 180 degrees, back around, down. Now he has killed all his energy. If we saw the ground, the jet has very little ground speed, I'm assuming, across the ground, right? He cashed all that in. He got his nose around and back around. If he was fighting close in, which how realistic is that? Probably not that realistic. But if he did get that close in, gives him the ability to threaten his adversary very quickly, put them in a weapons engagement zone. In the end, when you meet at the merge, you're in a dogfight, getting your nose around, thus being able to get your weapons on the adversary, get them into a weapons engagement zone the fastest, earns you the gold medal. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, there is no second place when it comes to that type of fight. So he got his nose around really quickly after that maneuvering. That makes it impressive. It's tough to see, you know, Su-57 has thrust victory. This T-50, I honestly don't know. I want to watch throughout here too, the flight control surfaces moving. You can see the horizontal stabs, those tails flapping around back there. I bet if we put this next to an F-16, because I joke with the F-22, if you looked at its horizontal stabs, again, those tails, the little mini wings in the back, those things are flapping around a good bit. F-16 wing versus an F-22 horizontal stab, like they're about the same size. Now the F-16 wing is a little bit bigger, but that has a lot of surface area to give nose authority, control authority at low speed regimes. You got more air you can push with those things around. Now, modern fighters, most, probably if not all, I'm not an aerospace engineer, but they tell me, you know, inherently unstable, allowing them to be more maneuverable with the flight control computers. So the flight control computers are doing a lot of work throughout this demonstration, and you can see it with the flight control surfaces moving. Likes cutting to that angle there. One note, obviously you see the smoke. You're burning dinosaurs at this point, so how clean can that be? That is a challenge when it comes to engineering. Su-57 does have different engines, or is getting different engines. I'll be curious to see what their visual signature pattern is, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. Maybe I just coined that phrase. If you have a 5th generation stealth fighter and you're out in the daytime and then you're putting out puffs of smoke as you're making throttle changes, very easy to identify and pick up at range, thus making the whole stealth thing not applicable, assuming you can pick it up with the old Mark 1 eyeball. But engine technology is a deal breaker, and it's a make it or break it. So puffing out smoke is not what you want as well. Look at the tails. I watched this throughout the profile too. The full tail is actually moving there. Now you expect a rudder, which is located on the tail, that's only going to encompass usually the trailing edge of the rudder, and that's going to move around versus the entire tail surface itself moving. And you can see the whole tail moving in this, which again is going to increase its ability to have more authority and maneuverability in the low speed regime. Again, that nose able to get it around in a low speed regime, which is impressive, having that authority to maneuver and put the nose where you want it to go, even when you don't have a lot of wind or airspeed coming over the wings there. And you can see him just get on there in the vertical and then still maneuvering around. Also, let's just back it up. Look at this. I don't think those were flares popping out. I'm just wondering about the camera angle here. These little puffs of smoke. See those little puffs of smoke? It might be cons. All right, there's your Top Gun Maverick movie right here. Can only applicable if you're in close in. This would be if you're being threatened in a defensive position would really come in play. but being able to put the brakes on, let them fly right by. So Tomcat, lots of clicking and throttle movements there. And then in Top Gun Maverick, you might remember the old Su-57 lookalike of the adversary nation that did something very similar to this. But again, spits your adversary who's on your tail, who's in an offensive threatening position, spits them out front, then boom, you roll, put them in a weapons engagement zone. So again, traded in all that energy, came to a stop. You do have to accelerate back out, but you put, in theory, the bad guy out in front of you. Looks like we're bringing this guy to a stop. So stop in the ground movement. Look at the smoke coming out the back there. Now you're going to start seeing the flight controls. Those things are working. Everything's flapping in the wind, trying just to hold where it is. Got all the leading edge on the wings, up by the canopy, horizontal stabs, flaperons. Everything is moving, hanging in space. It'd be cool to see the ground there, or the horizon line, because it doesn't look like he's moving across the ground hardly at all there. Maybe there's some movement. Look at the tails. Both tails, full movement there. So, slow speed came to a stop, dumped the nose, accelerated back out into the vertical, and then wrapped the nose around. So, low speed maneuvering coming around here. I don't see the cans really moving. It might be tough from this with this resolution, but should have thrust vectoring. Min radius turn, it looks like here. Again, don't really have the horizon line. It does look like a tight turn. I would expect it to be a tight turn. But again, if you have airspeed, you're going to be probably 9G limited, so you can only go so fast. Now, exiting the min radius turn into the vertical. Flying the F-16 demo, that's one thing I really thought I liked. And if someone knew what was going on, you're showcasing the max performance capability. Number of degrees around the circle as fast as possible, as well as you're on the limiter, 9Gs coming around, and then squatting the jet and climbing. So you're still showing, hey, at the end of this, I still have nose authority to get it maneuvering. Now the F-16, we would just power out of it. I think Sergey is going to continue around. So, yep, there he is. Kind of into a vertical min radius turn. So he's done a min radius turn in the horizontal into the vertical. And again, completed that loop, which I'll say is impressive. Another Top Gun Maverick, put the brakes on, fly right by you. And I think he is entering the downwind here to land. Everyone's favorite, putting the gear down to land for an air show. It is a critical part to the success of any sortie. It does look like a pretty tight final turn. Odd angle to look at, or a tough angle to really make an assessment, but he's rolling out. Boom. Right over the runway. So efficient. Not a B-52 pattern there, a bomber pattern. Which is a big plane. It's different. I get it. The old drogue chute. Parachute coming out, stop. So there you have it. The T-50 demo out of Zhuhai last week. I think is impressive. It's an impressive jet. Now, there are things there that for an air show look really cool. The applicability and the practicality of using it in combat or out in the real world, like, I don't know. Maybe there's a time where you need to hit the brakes and let someone fly right by you. Or, are you going to shoot someone at 70 miles and it's never going to get to this point? Who knows? Only time will tell. Hopefully we never see it, because it's bad news for everyone. No one wins in that case. So it'd be interesting to see Su-50 like full-on demo, see the differences in the motor, see the difference if there is any characteristics in performance, as far as like the smoke goes, as well as maybe getting a higher resolution of like the thrust vectoring. There's some cool videos out there. But hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and if you want me to talk about anything else. With that being said, I'll see you next time.